Hello and welcome to the Everything's Black Mike podcast for this special episode that we're bringing you on Friday evening. The time is currently 25 past 11 and we've just been at St James's Park to watch Newcastle United face Espanyol in the first of two games at St James's Park this weekend. But I suspect this episode will feature very little analysis of what actually happened on the pitch at St James's Park this evening. And instead, we'll be talking about one man in particular off it who was not in attendance this evening, who will not be in attendance against Atletico Madrid on Saturday, and that is Alexander Isak. We have spoken to Eddie Howe for the first time since he was out in the Far East in Singapore and South Korea to get quite a substantial update on the future of Alexander Isak, who, as we know, is keen to explore his options away from Newcastle United. As I say, the first time we've had the chance to sit down with Eddie Howe in the last couple of weeks, and he has just been bombarded with questions on Alexander Isak's future. And I must admit, and I must pre-warn you before we get into this episode, that it probably will not be the most positive of Everything in Black and White podcast shows that we do this season. And that is because it's looking pretty ominous for the future of Alexander Isak, and Eddie Howe made that quite clear when he was speaking to reporters this evening. I'm going to just dive straight into the quotes that Eddie Howe said tonight, because there was lots of questions put to him, and despite the fact he probably wanted to play quite a bit of it down and give some short answers and keep a lot of the stuff between Isak and himself quiet, there was still some quite revealing answers given by the boss in that 15-minute window. Now, the most pressing answer we got from Eddie Howe was given to BBC Sport before he spoke to us in the written press area. And he told BBC Radio Newcastle, "We would love for there to be a way back for Alex, but ultimately that is going to rest with the player. For us, he's very much still our player, but the situation is what it is. And I have to focus on the players that are here, fit, and want to play." Now, this would be a running theme of Eddie Howe's answers, because it's quite clear that Alexander Isak is available to play. Eddie Howe wants him to play, and he himself looks to be choosing not to play as he looks for the exit. One of the first questions Howe responded to in the written section of the press conference was regarding the talks that he's held with Isak this week, who has been at the training ground with Howe, despite the fact he's been turning up slightly later than his co-stars. Eddie Howe said, "We've had discussions and it's clear at the moment that we cannot involve Alex with the group, and I do not know how long that will be for." As you will all be aware, there's only 3 weeks left of the summer transfer window. Newcastle United have really struggled to get their top targets through the door. We know they already need to replace Callum Wilson at the point of their attack, and add Alexander Isak's exit into that. You're then looking at two centre forwards. You're also looking at a centre back, and probably also a central midfielder, maybe if you're feeling lucky. That is a lot of transfer work to be doing, and it certainly doesn't look like there's going to be any sort of resolution, good or bad, to the situation from Alexander Isak in the near future, which we will go on to in a couple of answers' time. Eddie Howe was then asked, does Alexander Isak have a future at Newcastle? Is there a way back? Now, this has been a real point of contention on social media in the last couple of days. Lots of fans saying, it's over. There's no way back after this. I think even Andrew Musgrove on one of the shows this week said, look, it's time to sell. You've got to cash in. The player doesn't want to be here. Eddie Howe taking a slightly different view of that. He says, of course he has a future at Newcastle. Certainly from our perspective, everyone connected with the club, we would love to see Alex back with the team, but the situation has to be right for that to happen. The next answer that Eddie Howe gave, quite revealing, given that the first we heard of this when Alexander Isak famously missed Newcastle tour of the Far East when that Liverpool interest first emerged. He said that there was a thigh injury being recovered from. That was why he didn't play at Celtic. That was why he was left behind. That's why he didn't initially go on the Far East tour. Eddie Howe completely changing his tack on that tonight and saying, look, Alexander Isak does not have a thigh injury anymore. He's not in recovery. That's not why he's missing training. That's not why he's playing. He's got no fitness issues. So Alexander Isak, as we say, is fit and healthy, despite, those sort of the talk of the thigh injury earlier in the summer. Then Eddie Howe was asked about whether the group itself has been disrupted. Now, from the outside looking in, Newcastle United have not won a game this pre-season. They've drawn 2 on the trot now. They've lost their first 3. They're still looking for that first win. And they've only got 1 game left to do it before that opener at Villa Park. Eddie Howe said, I think the group has been disrupted, of course, but I think whenever you have a player in this situation, it's unsettling the team, because I don't think we've been in this position before. Since I've been here, there's been pretty much harmony and togetherness of the group. So I think naturally this has been a topic of conversation for the players. It's been a distraction, and I think the biggest sort of hit that we've taken since he got here. We're not blessed with a number of positions, a number of players in Alex's position. So I think you've seen a big gap. But I have to say and give big credit to the players because they've got on with their work. Training's been at a really high level, and I have not seen a negative output on the pitch. The question then now people will be asking, as I've just said, there is only a week left now until Newcastle start their Premier League season. They've not had the ideal preparation on the pitch or off the pitch in the transfer market and every other which way. Eddie Howe was asked, is there any chance that Alexander Isak is still at the club before that Villa game? Is there any chance this situation is resolved and he's playing at Villa Park on Saturday? Eddie Howe responded to that saying, I want Alex to be playing today. I want him to be in training tomorrow. We would love the player to be here with us. So let me just make that absolutely clear. There's no part of me that does not want that outcome. But I do not see that changing before the Villa game in its current situation. That, unfortunately, means that Newcastle United are going to go into the final 2 weeks of a very, very bruising summer transfer window with, as it stands, no backup for Alexander Isak because as of Friday night, there's been no progression really in terms of getting Aaron Stokes to Newcastle United. Talks have been ongoing. The player wants to move. He looks like the most likely striker through the door. But Aaron Stokes will not be enough if Alexander Isak leaves the club, which it looks like he's heading towards. Newcastle United will potentially have 120, 130, 150 million burning a hole in their pocket to try and go and find another striker who is capable essentially of being the number one. Of course, you're not going to probably find somebody like Isak of his quality, of his ilk at this stage of the window or at the stage of the journey, but you're going to have to replace him. Is that Strand Larsen? Is it Samu from Porto? Is it Nicholas Jackson? Is it Ollie Watkins? I don't know. That's probably a question for the next couple of weeks, but certainly does look like Newcastle United are going to go into that game at Aston Villa with either William Masula leading the line, Anthony Gordon leading the line, or Aaron Stokes or any other striker. It does not look like it's going to be Alexander Isak, and that means we're at the situation where Newcastle United's club record signing, who is still being paid very, very good money by the club, is essentially going on strike at such a crucial time. And really, disrupting the team. Eddie Howe came out and look, he's laid it all on the line tonight. He's not sugarcoated it one bit. He's also not really protected the player, which is something we usually see Eddie Howe do. But yeah, worrying times for Newcastle United, worrying times over the future of Alexander Isak. I think any of us, me included, who were maybe holding out a little slither of hope that this situation could be resolved. I've been telling everybody all week when they've been asking me what happens with Alexander Isak. I've been saying, you've got to just get him back on side. You've got to sit the player down, and by hook or by crook, you've got to get him back to be wanting to play for Newcastle United. I still think that is the most ideal situation. For me, like Eddie, there was a way back. If he scores against Aston Villa or Liverpool or Leeds, all will be forgiven in my eyes if he comes up and says, look, I've made a mistake. But I think at the minute it looks like wishful thinking. It looks like Alexander Isak has made his mind up. And now all that probably really is left to be said or looked at is what do Liverpool do? They've already had one approach rejected by Newcastle, who didn't deem it anywhere near their valuation. They've then got to come up with another concrete move, which is improved in terms of money. And they've already spent 300 million plus. They've already, went and signed Hugo Ekitike. They've already went and signed Jeremy Frimpong and Florian Wirtz and, all these players that are going to improve them. They've left it late for Alexander Isak, but by leaving it late, they've turned his head at a very inopportune moment for Newcastle, who now have to navigate the last 3 weeks without their best player and who is showing no signs of being any closer to returning to the fold. We will probably know more in the coming days. I think now Eddie Howe said this, we may even see some movement from Liverpool because surely this is the green light they've been waiting for. The player does not look like he's going to be changing his mind anytime soon. And Newcastle United now go into the last 3 weeks of the window, as I've said, with very limited options up top and a real need to get new bodies through the door at the top end of the pitch. Whether they can do that, I'm not too sure. Eddie Howe seemed very hopeful that they would tonight. He spoke about transfers and said there will they're doing all they can. They're working. It's been a frustrating summer, but it can end positively. From where I'm sat right now, that is a big stretch. And as I sit here right now, I think, tonight is probably the first time I've actually sat here and really thought, I suspect Alexander Isak might not be a Newcastle United player for too much longer. I hope I'm wrong. Others will say, it's time to cash in. But I think tonight we probably heard from Eddie Howe some really, really telling answers about the future of the player. Unfortunately, it looks like he might be out the door. As I say, we'll know more in the coming days. Thank you for joining us for this very, very spontaneous late podcast that we brought you. We thought we probably should get the news out to you as soon as possible. And as I say, we'll have plenty more across the website and on this YouTube channel and the Monday show and the pods in the next couple of days. So thank you very much for tuning in. And until then, try and enjoy your weekend. Hopefully Newcastle get a win against Atletico, and we'll speak to you very, very soon.